quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
I now ask unanimous consent that on Thursday, September 8th, when the Senate resumes consideration of the American Invents Act, the following amendments be the only first-degree amendments in order. Colburn, number 599, Sessions, number 600, Cantwell, number 595. That there be 5 hours debate on the amendments divided in the following manner. 75 minutes for Senator Colburn or his designee, 1 hour for Senator Sessions or his designee, 45 minutes for Senator Cantwell or her designee, 1 hour for Senator Grassley or his designee, and 1 hour for Senator Leahy or his designee. Upon the yielding back of time, the Senate proceed to votes in relation to the amendments in the following order. Sessions 600, Cantwell 595, Colburn 599. No other amendments or points of order be in order to any of the amendments of the bill prior to the votes. Finally, the following disposition of the amendments, the Senate proceed to vote on passage of the bill as amended if amended.
Without objection.
With this agreement, there will be up to 4 roll call votes tomorrow afternoon beginning about 4 p.m. Senators should also expect an additional vote tomorrow evening following the President's speech to the joint session. This will be on a motion to proceed to S.J. Res. 25, which is a joint resolution of disapproval of the President's exercise of authority to increase the debt limit. If we proceed to the debt limit, that is S.J. Res. 25, that means we'll be in session for a long time on Friday, enough to dispose of that. If we do not move, if the motion to proceed is not made successfully, then we would finish that matter, be able to finish this week's business, at least as far as votes. Friday we have some other stuff that we need to do, filing different motions and things, but that's the general body wouldn't have to worry about that. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that when Senate completes its business day, it adjourn until tomorrow morning at 9:30 p.m. That's September 8th. Following the prayer and the pledge, adjourned proceedings be approved to date. And now I'll begin required time for 2 leaders to be reserved for the use later in the day. And I have a few other things if you just withhold any consent agreement on that. Mr. President, I ask consent that the Senate proceed to consideration H. Conres 74.
Clerk will report.
H. Conres 74, concurrent resolution providing for a joint session of Congress to receive a message from the President.
Is there objection to proceed? Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to. The motion to reconsider be laid on the table. There be no intervening action or debate. And the need to related statements be placed in the record as if read.
Without objection.
I ask consent the Judicial Committee be discharged from further consideration. S. Res. 219.
Clerk report.
Senate Resolution 219 designating September 13, 2011 as National Celiac Disease Awareness Day.
Is there objection to proceeding? Without objection, the committee is discharged. The Senate will proceed.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to. The preamble be agreed to. The motion we consider be laid upon the table. There be no intervening action or debate. And if there are statements, they be printed in the record as if read.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that we now proceed to S. Res. 258.
The clerk will report.
Senate Resolution 258 supporting the designation of a National Adult Education and Family Literacy Week.
Is there objection? Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to. The preamble be agreed to. The motion reconsider be laid on the table. There be no intervening action or debate. If there are any statements relating to this matter, they appear in the record as if read.
Without objection.
I understand that there's a joint resolution at the desk and it's due for a second reading.
Clerk will report.
First reading. I'm sorry, Mr. President. First reading.
The clerk will read the title of the joint resolution for the first time.
S.J. Res. 26, joint resolution expressing the sense of Congress that Secretary of the Treasury Timothy Geithner no longer holds the confidence of Congress or of the people of the United States.
I ask that now for second reading, and I do that only to place this joint resolution on the calendar. That's by virtue of Rule 14, but I object to my own request.
Objection is heard. The joint resolution will receive its second reading next legislative day.
I now ask unanimous consent that the President of the Senate be authorized to appoint a committee, part of the Senate to join with the Light Committee on part of the House of Representatives to escort President Chamber for the joint session at 7 p.m. on Thursday, September 8th.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I've already asked part of this closing script consent. I would further state that following any leader remarks, the Senate be in period of morning business for an hour, with senators permitted to speak for up to 10 minutes each. The time be equally divided and controlled between the two leaders or the designees, and the Republicans will control the first half, majority control the second half.
Without objection.
After we finish morning business, we'll resume consideration of H.R. 1249.
Without objection.
So we've reached an agreement to complete action on the bill as I outlined earlier, Mr. President. If there's no further business to come before the Senate, I ask it adjourn under the previous order.
Senate will stand adjourned 9:30 a.m. September 8th, Thursday.
The Senate has just gavelled out. Lawmakers today have been working on a bill to overhaul the patent system. The legislation includes changes to the collection of fees